once you begin your broadcast.
Good evening, welcome. Welcome all of you for the demo today on CFA Level 2. So as of now, 3 of you have joined. So just before I went on break, Pooja had already joined. Apart from Pooja, we have Abhinav and Ruchika. So I welcome all of you for today's demo. So yes, the session is pretty much on. Abhinav, basically I took a I just wanted to give a 5-minute lead time just to see if others can, people like you can join us. So anyway, I think, I'll start the session today. So I'll give you a brief introduction about myself. My name is Karthik. I have done both my CFA as well as, I am both CFA as well as FRM. Yes, I've been in the financial industry for close to 10 years now. I take care of portfolio trade accounting, risk management, valuation, and business analysis. And I did both CFA and FRM while I was working, so I didn't take a break from my job. And in terms of teaching, I've been relatively new to this field. I've been teaching with Pristine close to 2 years now. Yeah, I enjoy teaching primarily because I tend to interact with bright minds like you. All right. So coming to today's session, basically we're going to do this in 2 parts. The first part would be a small demo on particular topic of CFA Level 2. The topic that I've chosen is regression analysis out of Quant's topic. And then we'll get into more specific part. The second half of the demo will be more about CFA Level 2 exam. So any questions that you might have on how CFA Level 2 exam is all about structured, how your preparation should be different from Level 1, etc., any kind of question, I'll be more than happy to take. All right. So I'll probably start with the first part, that is the demo. Primarily the purpose of demo is to give you two aspects of it. One is to give you some insight about what kind of topics you're going to study going forward for CFA Level 2. And the other part is, of course, to give you some idea about how typical web classes on Pristine are. So we'll use this opportunity to actually give you some insight about how a typical classroom session would be, how we can interact, with the faculty, how the faculty interacts with you, and stuff like that. So I'll be more than happy to answer any kind of questions that you might have at any point of time. We have a very limited audience, so just 3 of you with me. So I'll be more than happy to answer any question that you have. All right. In terms of, I think for those who are probably attending Pristine webinar session for the first time, I think by this time you might have figured out that all your microphones are muted. So the reason for that is, usually in a webinar session, we don't have the luxury of looking at each other's face. So in order to avoid too many people talking at the same time and creating confusion, usually we do this one-way communication where I'll be the person talking, and you will be the one listening it. But at any point, if you have any question, you can use the question box, which is a little pop-up box that you see, and you can type in your question there. I promise that I'll read each one of your question, read it aloud so that everybody else in the class first have an opportunity to understand the question, and then I'll proceed to give answers. All right, so it works pretty well. Hopefully we'll use this experience, so basically you'll use this experience for further classes for the webinar classes in Pristine. All right. So any question that you might have, ladies and gentlemen, before I start? Abhinav, Pooja, Ruchika, any questions? All right, thanks for the feedback, Pooja and Ruchika. All right, okay, thank you, Abhinav. So let's move on. Then, as I said, the topic that I'm going to focus today is regression analysis, which is part of your Quants 1 lecture of CFA Level 2 Pristine. All right. So regression analysis, in terms of exam, you guys need to know that the general weightage given for quants in level 2 is around 8 to 10%. So you can expect regression analysis. So usually, I think by this time, I hope that you guys know the structure of the exam. So the general structure of the exam is, so let's compare L1 exam versus L2 exam, right? So in level 1, you had 2 sessions, morning and afternoon. Morning session was both were multiple choice questions, though in morning session you had 120 multiple choice questions, in afternoon you had 120 multiple choice questions. So that becomes totally 240 multiple choice questions. Level 2 also you have morning and afternoon exam, but you have totally 60 questions in morning and 60 questions in the afternoon. To be more precise, you have 10 item set. So the way questions are prepared in level 2 is that you will be given a small case study, and there will be 6 preceding questions out of that case study. So totally there are 10 case studies, so that makes 10 into 6, 60 questions in the morning, and similarly a 60 question in the afternoon. So first and foremost, the way you look at it is the number of questions are exactly halved, and that makes it more tricky because the larger number of the question, the larger the type of questions, the better the probability that you have of getting at least some of them right. So suddenly you have half the number of questions that you're tested on. And what is worse is that 6 questions are going to be lifted from one particular topic. So there are going to be 10 item sets. Each set focus on a particular concept, right? So let's say if you don't read any particular topic, and if you're very unlucky and an item set come out of that question, or an item set question come out of that topic, all of a sudden you're going to lose 6 questions out of it. And if you do the simple math, let's say if you don't study one topic and 6 questions you are going to lose, so 6 out of 120, that is 1 by 20 of your exam is already host. You're suddenly going to lose so many questions you know. So that's a very bad idea. So in general, I think the first mindset that you need to have when it comes to level 2 is never ever ignore a topic, because as I said, if you're very unlucky and the topic that you ignore, if that topic is pushed on your level 2 question paper, all of a sudden you're going to lose 6 questions out of nothing. And given that already your number of questions are less, that amounts to some big, it's usually each topic will give you 5% weightage. So the moment you have ignored one topic, you're going to lose 5% out of the box. So it's going to be a little tricky. And what makes level 2 a little bit more challenging than level 1 is, apart from the difference in the way questions are put forward, apart from the difference in your examination style, the volume of topic that you study is quite significant. So I would say that I can easily say that based on a past analysis, the number of concepts that you study in level 2 is around 1.5 times the number of concepts that you study in level 1. All right. So if we combine everything, basically we are saying that your syllabus for level 2 is around 1.5 times syllabus for level 1. And what is worse is that each and every topic, each and every concept is equally important, because the moment you ignore one topic, you have a great danger of losing 5% of your total marks. And to make things worse, the number of questions, the number of testable questions that come on the exam is half of level 1, only 120 questions. So all this makes your level 2 a little challenging compared to level 1. But yeah, I think the keys of success remain the same. That is, if you study on a regular basis, if you study on a consistent basis, I don't think level 2 is that difficult at all. All right. All right. So now coming back to the context of regression analysis. Regression analysis. So as I said, quants 2 or quants topic in general in CFA level 2 is given a weightage of around 8 to 10%. Let's take a highest 10%, which means around 12 questions. That is one item set in the morning and one item set in the afternoon are likely to come out of quants, of which regression forms a bulk of the concepts. So you can definitely expect around 4 to 5 questions both in the morning and afternoon set out of regression. So regression analysis, it's a broad concept, because in regression analysis you study about the analysis, about various assumptions, various limitations, etc., etc. So all put together is quite the bulk of your quants topic in level 2. All right. So I have a question coming from Pooja. She says, "Is level 2 also a multiple choice question?" Yes, Pooja. The good news is level 2 is also a multiple choice question, but there is a slight difference in the exam, or rather the structure of the questions. Right? As I said, so in level 1, each question was a multiple choice question. Each question was an independent question. Whereas in level 2, you're going to get case. We call it as item set questions. That is, so let me see if I can explain this on a blank slide. So in level 2, basically you have item set questions. What basically means is you'll have a question which will have a case study sort of a thing, and then there will be 6 questions, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all 6 based on the data which you have to use out of the case study. But each question by itself, that is question 1, question 2, question 3, itself will have 3 choices. So each question is a multiple choice question, just that they are all linked to each other. All right. So totally there will be 10 item sets, 10 in the morning, 10 in the afternoon. I hope that is clear. Right. All right. Thanks. Okay, so I'll move on. So let's try to understand what regression analysis is all about, and basically to give you an idea about how you or what kind of topics you can expect in level 2. All right. So before I get into this, what do you mean by regression analysis? What is the literal meaning of regression? Anyone who can explain me? No one? So there is something called as progress. And opposite of progress is regress. Right? What do you mean by progress? That is, you are improving, you are going to the next level. Regress is obviously opposite of it. That is, so if somebody says you're progressing, that means you are improving. If somebody says you are regressing, that means you are falling back. You're going from bad to worse. Okay. So what is this whole regression analysis all about, right? So this is where you need to understand a little bit of history. So in history, of course, this whole historical thing is not there from a CFA exam perspective. But anyway, I thought it will be useful to give you this anecdote. All right. So long time back in 17th century, basically, or 18th century, whatever you want to call, there was a mathematician called Galton. Okay. He was trying to do some analysis of height of males in America, right? And what he found is tall father had child who were also tall, okay, but the difference of heights as you go further in generations used to decrease. So what do you mean by that is, let's take an example, right? So let's say you have hypothetically a population of only 3 females or 3 males, okay? One has a height of 5 feet, one has a height of 5 feet 5 inch, another one has a height of 7 feet, let's say, okay? So obviously the tallest among them is third person, and the difference between the tallest and the next tallest is 1.5 feet, right? What Galton found was, when you move to a next generation, that is, let's say each one of them have children, and let's say each one of them also have male children, then the height of their respective height becomes something like this. Okay, you get let's say 5 feet. This remains 5.2 feet, and this becomes 6 feet. So basically, what it means is, tall father had tall son, right? But the difference of tallness, that is, difference of tallest versus the second tallest, used to decrease progressively. So in the first generation, the difference was around 1.5 feet. In the second generation, the difference is only 0.8 feet. So this terminology he named as regression. That is, as you go further ahead in generation, your population is regressing towards a common value. So if you go to the third generation, probably again the tallest father will have the tallest child, but he will be not so tall, or not very tall compared to the rest of the family, or the rest of the population. So this is a phenomenon that he termed as regression. So he said that as we are going ahead in time, as we are going from one generation to another generation, the uniqueness is decreasing. Okay, but he found out that there is definitely a relationship between height of father and height of son. In fact, tall fathers produced tall sons. Okay, now in statistics, this phenomena we recently know as regression towards mean. That is, over a period of time, your phenomena will settle down towards mean. So it's if you put the same analogy to stock prices, let's say you put a long-term average mean price. So let's say I'm plotting stock prices against time. X-axis is time, Y-axis is stock prices. If I put this is the long-term average mean, then at some point a stock price may be higher. Slowly it will come falling down. Slowly it will fall down. Slowly fall down till it settles down at long-term average mean. Or the other possibility is, initially it is low, it keep remaining at low, but it slowly increase till it reach the long-term average mean. Okay, so this phenomenon is called a regression towards mean, and that is how this branch of science started. That is, the whole idea of regression analysis is to indicate that there is a relationship between an independent variable and a dependent variable. In Galton's example, it was a relationship between height of your father and height of your son. All right. Now let's try to understand regression in a slightly different context of an example, right? So this is the million-dollar question that all of us have, right? We understand that there is a relationship between hours of studies, that is amount of effort that you put in, and the amount of marks that you're going to get on the exam, right? And we have enough common sense to understand that what is a cause, what is an effect. Okay, I have a question from Ruchika. So regress is not connecting with Galton's theory. No, it is. If you look at it, it is connecting with Galton's theory, because as you go from one generation to another generation, your uniqueness is decreasing. That is, tall father have tall children, but they are no longer different from the rest of your peers, right? So that's what he said, that you're regressing. That is, you're slowly joining the. So even though you may have a very unique property, slowly as you go further in generations, your unique property starts to fade out. And I think we have seen this also in many examples, right? So your father may be a terrific actor, his son might be a little, may also be a good actor, but may not be as good as his father was compared to his peers, right? So that is in a way regression, right? So you slowly, you have, so there is definitely a relationship between your father's ability and your son's ability. But when you compare your peers versus peers, so if you compare your father with his peers, and so your father may be way above his peers in a particular property, but when it comes to a next generation, your son may still be better than rest of his peers, but the difference may not be so large. Okay, that is what he meant by regression. Richika says, so they are moving towards mean. Yes, exactly. So that means slowly they are getting towards long-term average mean. So that is the idea, right? And that is where the whole concept of regression starts. So even though regression sounds a little bad word, because we are saying something, it's we all like to hear progression, not regression, but the word regression stuck because of this phenomena that Galton observed. Okay. However, in modern day statistics, regression is more about coming up with a mathematical relationship between independent variable and dependent variable. So for that, that is what we are going to see next. Okay. So as I said, we all know this relationship that I think everybody would have told you this. Your teacher, your father, mother, everybody have told you this, that if you have to pass, if you have to do well on the exam, study, right? So we all know that your hours of study definitely determine, to some extent, the marks that you'll get on the exam. And we are also quite easy to figure out, or it doesn't require much of knowledge. It's basically common sense to figure out what is cause, what is effect. That is, my hours of study is the cause that can create a effect of good marks on the exam. So in other words, your hours of study drives your marks on the exam, not the other way around. It's not that your marks on the exam drives your hours of study, right? So once you have this situation, that is, once you have established that there is a relationship between two variables, and once you establish that, cause and effect relationship, that is, which is driving what, then obviously the next question is, what is the mathematical relationship? That is, if I put 10 more hours of study, in our example, if I put 5 more hours of study, how much will it actually increase my mark? How much, right? How much? So now you're asking for a mathematical value. You're asking for a quantification of relationship. And that is where your regression comes very handy. So regression analysis is actually used to establish a mathematical equation between your independent variable and dependent variable. In our example, independent variable is your hours of study, and dependent variable is marks that you obtain on the exam. Okay. So I think this slide basically says that, yeah, we agree that there is indeed a mathematical relationship. There is indeed a trend line. As you increase your hours of study, that is your x-axis, your y-axis also increases. It's almost like a straight line relationship. Now to figure out the equation of the straight line, in other words, to figure out a mathematical equation connecting your independent variable and dependent variable, is where your regression equation becomes very useful. So now let's consolidate our understanding. Regression analysis is primarily used to predict the value. This is the most important. That is, It is used for forecasting. It is used for assigning a numeric value. In other words, it's a way of quantifying your relationship, right? So used to forecast your dependent variable based on the value of at least one independent variable. And basically it explains the impact of changes on an independent variable of the dependent variable, right? So there are two terminologies that you need to know. Independent variable is obviously the variable which is free to move. An independent variable causes changes to the dependent variable. So in our example, hours of study is the cause and the effect is marks obtained on the exam. So we say hours of study is the independent variable and marks obtained on the exam is the dependent variable. There are also other terminologies used which you need to know. Independent variable is also called explaining variable, whereas, so I'll probably write this here, right? So you have independent, you have dependent variable. Another terminology is explaining variable and explaining, and this is explain variable. I apologize because my handwriting is really, really bad. I hope you can make out what I'm writing. And the last one, and it's also called as exogenous variable, and is also called endogenous variable. Okay, all these mean the same thing. That is independent variable, dependent variable, explaining variable, explain variable, exogenous variable, endogenous variable. Right? All these refer to the fact that there is some cause and there is some effect. Okay. Any questions so far? Abhinav has a question, can the number of independent variables be more than one? Yes, definitely the number of independent variables can be more than one. Okay. So I'll actually explain. You know, see, basically they say that whenever you have to start studying the easiest one and then slowly introduce complication. So even in level 2, we'll first study a simple linear regression analysis, which is assuming there is only one independent variable. And then we extend the concept for multiple linear regression. Multiple linear regression is all about multiple independent variables affecting a dependent variable. So Abhinav, to answer the question, yes, the number of independent variable can definitely be more than one. All right. Now, before I go further, I hope you understand the limitations of regression analysis. Okay. So as of now, if you heard what I said, regression analysis can be used only if two things are established. Number one, that there is indeed a relationship between two variables. So somebody has to establish the relationship. And number two, more importantly, determine your cause and effect. Okay. Only when you have established these two, you can proceed ahead with regression analysis. Okay. I'll give you a anecdotal example. You know, I actually read this in a very in an interesting book, so I thought I'll share this with you. Okay. So sometime back in early days, that is old days, basically in a kingdom of Egypt, there was a problem that during rainy season, a lot of malaria cases used to be reported. Okay, so obviously the king grew a little wary of this problem, and he ordered an inquiry. Basically, what happened? The inquiry report. So interestingly, the epidemic of malaria was only restricted to certain regions. Okay, it was not widespread across the country. So the king basically ordered an inquiry saying that, tell me some idea why this epidemic is reported only in certain regions, and find some factors which may be common among these regions. You know, why only this malaria epidemic is reported in certain regions, whereas certain regions are error-free. You know, so see what you can find. See, is there any commonality, any factor that you can attribute to? So people did research and they came up with the finding that regions where the number of doctors were large, reported a very high incidence of malaria. And regions where the number of doctors were less, okay, reported very less incidence of malaria. Okay. Now, the king was very happy to read this finding, and he said, okay, I know what is the cure for malaria. Simply kill all the doctors. All right. Now, what is the problem with this? Obviously, king didn't figure out the cause and effect properly, right? So it so happens that areas where doctors' population is high, people go to doctors for medication, and therefore you see a higher incidence of malarial cases reported. Now, obviously, cases where number of doctors is less, probably the doctors themselves are getting consumed by malaria, or people going and reporting cases of malaria very less. So there is definitely a relationship between number of doctors and malaria, but the cause and effect is not that your number of doctors is causing large number of malaria cases. Rather, it's the other way around. A large number of malaria cases, and when cases where there are large number of doctors, people go and seek medical help. So that is what the problem is. It's much easier, or it's very easy for us to say that there is a relationship between two variables, but it's very difficult for us to predict what is your cost, what is your effect. Okay, and most of the time in financial econometrics, that is where the mistake is made. Okay, so I'll give you another example, right? So sometime back I was doing a financial modeling, and or rather I was taking a class on financial modeling, and somebody asked me this question. So I said there is a relationship between GDP and stock price, right? So usually in any economy, if your economy is doing well, your stock price can also go on, usually your stock prices also start to going up. So I said, let's do a regression analysis. So given this situation, what do you think is the independent variable? What do you think is the dependent variable? Is it your stock price that drives GDP, or is it your GDP that drives stock price? Right, Abhinav has answered this, right? GDP is your independent variable, right? And yeah, Pooja also got this right. Stock price is your dependent variable, right? So your changes in GDP drive your stock price changes. It's not the other way around. Your stock price changes doesn't drive your GDP as such. Okay, so this is where it's very important to understand the cause and effect relationship. And unfortunately, regression analysis doesn't do that. Regression basically tells you that there is a relationship between two variables, but it doesn't tell you what is cause, what is effect. That is something that you have to figure out yourself. So one more person who joined us, Akshit Malhotra. Akshit is asking, can you give us a little preview of what we have done till now? Akshit, we have basically just started the demo sometime back. We were going, so the demo at a very high level has two parts. One is, we're going to look at one particular topic of CFA Level 2. The topic that we are looking today is regression analysis. The idea of this session is to primarily give you some insight into the kind of topics that you can expect when you're studying CFA Level 2. Also, from my perspective, to give you some idea about how webinar classes are conducted using Pristine or in Pristine. All right. The second half of the demo, which I'll start in another 15 to 20 minutes, is more directed towards answering your questions. So if you have any question regarding CFA Level 2 exam, for example, how is Level 2 different from Level 1? How should I go about preparation, etc., etc. Any kind of question that you might have, we would discuss that in the second part of the demo. All right. So we just started with regression analysis. I was trying to explain what regression analysis is all about, and what is the concept of an independent variable, what is the concept of a dependent variable in a regression analysis. All right. So we just got started on that. All right, so let's move on. So basically I was talking about limitations of your regression analysis, and regression analysis, the fundamental limitation is it doesn't tell you cause and effect. Mathematically, we say that regression analysis is a functional relationship. It tells you that there is a function combining two variables, but it is not a causal relationship. It cannot tell me which is cause, which is effect. All right. Akshit has a question. Are these topics covered in level 1? Akshit, we are talking about level 2. Okay, so I hope you have joined the right demo session. We are talking about CFA level 2 demo. And yeah, basically these topics are not there in level 1. CFA level 2 have a different set of topics altogether. All right. Okay, now as I said, the best way to learn something is to learn the most simple case. So we're going to start learning the simplest case of all, which is simple linear regression model. Simple here means it's primarily is called simple because there is only one independent variable that we are going to consider. Linear regression model means there is a linear relationship between independent variable and dependent variable. If you remember the geometry class, how do you represent a linear variable? Through a straight line, right? And what is the equation of a straight line? Y equal to ax plus b, where a is a constant, b is a constant, right? Abhinav has said mx plus c, both are same. Right? Basically, a and b are constants. So same thing, right? So you are basically looking at a very simple case of simple linear regression model. Simple here because there is only one independent variable x, which give an output for y. In other words, there is only one independent variable that can explain changes on a dependent variable y. And it's linear because the coefficients a and b are linear powers of 1. So it's so basically when you say a linear regression model, you are implying that there is a straight line relationship between independent variable and dependent variable. Okay, and the last part is the most important. Changes in y are assumed to be caused by changes in x. That is, as I kept on saying, linear regression or regression analysis is a functional relationship. It doesn't tell you causal relationship. It doesn't tell you which is cause, which is independent, or which is cause, which is effect, which is independent variable, which is dependent variable. For that, you have to use your common sense. Okay. Shakshit has a question. What is the weightage of quants in level 2? Akshit has said quants in level 2 is around 8 to 10%. That is what we say. Okay. So 8 to 10% means there will be totally 120 questions on the exam. If you take 10%, around 12 questions. That is generally one item set in the morning and one item set in the afternoon is from quants. All right. Let's solve some questions. Let's see, let's try to solve this question to see if we have understood. So financial economics runs the following regression: demand for car equal to alpha plus beta into income level plus error. So demand for car is what variable and income level is what variable. So Akshit has a question. What is exogenous? Yeah, I think that is the point, right? So that is where the key is. You need to understand, right? So exo, endo. I think if you've studied thermal engineering, again you use exothermic, endothermic, right? Endo means from within. Okay. Exo means external, from outside. Okay. So endogenous variable means this is the independent variable. You can simply change this variable. It has no influence from outside. Exogenous means it is impacted from external factors. So another way of calling independent and dependent variable is independent variable is endogenous and dependent variable is exogenous, that is affected by outside. So what is the answer for this question? Right, I think Pooja has answered this. How about others? Yeah, basically endogenous and exogenous, right? So demand for car is endogenous, that is demand for car is independent, and income level is exogenous, that is it is dependent. So that's all. All right. a simple question. Anyway, you can't expect such questions to come on the exam, but I thought I'll just put this question primarily to give you some idea of the terminologies that you may expect. Now let's move on. So this is what your output of a regression equation is, or regression analysis is. You have to come up with, so this is called PRF, population regression function. Okay, that is, y is your dependent variable, beta 0 is intercept, beta 1 is slope coefficient, x is obviously the independent variable, and u is your random error component. Okay. Actually, there's a question: is level 2 whole multiple choice questions or not? Yes, actually, level 2 is all multiple choice questions. Okay. So as I said, just wait for some time. We'll actually, in few minutes, in fact, in another few minutes, I'll end this demo and we'll talk more about, your level 2 exam structure. That is, how you should prepare for level 2. What are the type of questions that you can expect on level 2, and how is level 2 exam style different from level 1, etc. etc. Okay. Abhinav has a question: is CFA model also an example for regression? Yes, CFA model is also an example for regression. In particular, what you're regressing again, what is your independent variable, what is your dependent variable? Your independent variable in a CFA equation is market returns, right? And your dependent variable is particular stock returns, right? And therefore, you're basically explaining how your stock returns and will explain by changes to your market return. And obviously, the concept of beta comes through regression analysis. Okay, so that's all. Okay, so I'm going to answer the question. Yes, CFA model is definitely an example for regression model. Okay. Ruchika says this beta 0 and beta 1 is an answer to me. Please explain. No issue, Ruchika. I'm there to explain. Right. So nothing much. Don't get bogged down by the terminology. This equation is a straightforward equation, right? As I said, when you're talking about a linear regression model, you are assuming that there is a straight line relationship between independent variable and dependent variable. So we assume that the equation will be of the form y equal to ax plus b, where a and b are constant. So in our terminology, a is replaced by beta 0, and b is replaced, or a is replaced by beta 1, and b is replaced by beta 0. So that's all. Okay. A, b, or beta 0, beta 1 all refer to constants. Constant means numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1.5, any number. Okay. So that's all. So don't get bogged down. The idea is my regression function is of the form some constant multiplied by independent variable plus some other constant. Okay. You can term this constant as a or b, or you can term it as beta 1 or beta 0. All right. Make sense? Okay. Now there is a slight catch here which you need to understand. So when it comes to so the traditional population regression function gives you a straight line equation, and statistics says that I can give you an equation like this, that is y bar equal to beta 0 plus beta 1 x bar, and this is a deterministic function. Okay. In other words, my whole regression analysis can give me one equation deterministically. Deterministic means there is no random variable, there is no uncertainty, and that is my mean change of dependent variable can be explained in terms of mean change of independent variable. Okay, through some constant, through a straight line equation. Okay, so this is deterministic. That is, I know for sure that my regression function goes through a point, mean of x and mean of y, and with that I can actually pinpointly get at an equation. Okay, so this is my traditional population regression function. That is, this is a simple equation that explains my changes to the mean of y with changes or explained in terms of mean of x. However, our goal is not to only predict your mean values. Our goal is to predict individual values, right? For each value of x1, I want to know what is the value of y1. So in our example, for each value of hours of study, let's say if I put 10 hours of study, I need to know how much of mark will I get. It's about 15 hours of study, I need to know how much of marks will I get, right? So for each value of x1, that is for each value of independent variable, I want an equation that can give me values of dependent variables, right? Now what statistics tells me is that I can't give you an accurate equation for individual values of x1 forecasting y1. But on average, I can give you an accurate value for how mean changes of hours of study, let's say mean is x bar, is related to mean of my marks of study, which is y bar. Okay, so this equation is deterministic. But if you need an equation that for each independent variable of each independent value, that is for each value of independent variable x1, x2, x3, I want to forecast dependent variable y1, y2, y3, then I can't give you with certainty. So basically, here is your concept of stochastic PRF comes into picture. Okay, stochastic is nothing but another term for random. Random means uncertain. I'm not sure. Okay, the stochastic PRF is simple. A stochastic PRF can give you value for dependent variable for each value of independent variable. So stochastic variable becomes xi plus an error term ei. Okay. In other words, if you look at this equation, what is the difference between this equation and this equation? Two things, right? Here there is no random error term. It's deterministic equation. That is, I know for sure that x bar and y bar will have this relationship. Whereas here, the relationship is not deterministic, rather it's stochastic. Stochastic means it is random because I get this random error component, which is ei. Random error basically says for every value of xi, I can't predict yi without any error. Okay, and the error is truly random. That is, sometimes I may have error, sometimes I may not have error, sometimes I may have positive error, sometimes I may have negative error. Positive error means sometimes I may overestimate my dependent variable. Sometimes, or negative error means sometimes I may underestimate my dependent variable. Okay, so that is, so strictly speaking, the equation that we are seeing on the slide is actually a stochastic population regression function, because you are talking about for each value of independent variable, tell me the corresponding value of dependent variable. And statistics says that I can't give that to you without any error, and therefore you have this concept of a error term. All right? Make sense? Any questions? Akshay says, can you give me an overview of topics covered in L2 Quants? Yes, sure, Akshay, I'll do that. Just give me a moment. I'll just finish this topic. Okay. Now, finally, we are reaching the last part of the demo. I'll probably end at this because I think most of you are a little impatient about getting more about CFA. I know, your primary purpose is to know more detail about CFA level 2. So I'll just finish this. Okay. So basically, your idea is to predict your PRF, that is population regression function. And this works if you have population data, that is, you have collected some historical data covering the whole population. Now, unfortunately, what happens is we can't usually work with population, right? We all have limitation that we don't have enough either reach or enough cost to work with the whole population. So we all work with the samples. So you get a sample like this, that is for hours of study, what is the mark obtained for students in Mumbai. And you end up doing the regression analysis here and finally ending up predicting a different equation. So the regression analysis gives you an equation for a particular sample. That equation is called sample regression function. Okay, it's also called sample regression line, SRL. But always keep the bigger picture in mind. We always want to infer about the population, but since we don't have the luxury of working with the population, we take samples. But whatever we deduce or whatever we infer out of sample, we assume that it holds true for the population. So here also same situation. You want to ideally arrive at population regression function, but since you don't have the luxury of working with the whole population data, you actually take a sample and you work with the sample. So by analyzing the sample, you get, by doing regression analysis of the sample, you get a sample regression line, sample regression function. But as I said, sample is only a mean, it's only a mechanism. It's not the eventual goal. Your eventual goal is always to identify population regression function. So we also do the same thing. So basically you just get different terminologies. That is, you have a sample regression function, which is nothing but an equation that describes the relationship between independent variable and dependent variable for the sample data set. You always use SRF, that is sample regression function, and assume that same equation holds true for population, because your eventual goal is to predict PRF, that is population regression function. All right. So I have a question from Ruchika. She says, can you explain intercept and slope concepts? So I'll try to do that, Ruchika. Okay. So again, straightforward. Okay. So your y is beta 0 plus beta 1 x plus some error term. Okay. Beta 0 is said to be intercept, and beta 1 is said to be slope. Okay. Now, what is the economic interpretation of individual thing is more important. Okay, that is, slope is usually is nothing but your tangent. Okay, so you have a straight line. Slope is nothing but tan theta. That is delta y by delta x. Okay, delta y and delta is nothing but, for this value of x1, this is my value of y1. For this value of x2, this is my value of y2. Okay, so x2 minus x1 is my delta x, y2 minus y1 is my delta y, and slope is defined as nothing but delta y by delta x. So slope equal to b1 equal to delta y by delta x. How do you economically interpret it? Let's say your y is nothing but your marks that you get on the exam, and let's say x is your independent variable, which is hours of study. So beta 1 is nothing but delta y by delta x. If I keep delta x equal to 1, what happens to this equation? Beta 1 equal to delta y when delta x equal to 1, right? So I can physically interpret my beta 1 as slope, which is nothing but change in the amount of marks that I receive when I increase my hours of study by 1 unit. You getting my point? That is, for 1 unit change of independent variable. In our example, for 1 additional hour of study, what is the change in my marks obtained? What is the change of your dependent variable? And that is how you can interpret beta 1. Following? Any questions? Right? So beta 1 is nothing but slope, and slope is nothing but change in independent variable or change in dependent variable for a unit change in independent variable. So in our example, if dependent variable is the marks of study, then I can interpret beta 1 as that increase in my marks of study when I put delta x equal to 1. That is when I put 1 more additional hour of study. That is called beta 1. Okay, and beta 0 is even more simple. If you look at this whole equation, y equal to beta 0 plus beta 1 x, right? So when I make x equal to 0, my y becomes beta 0. It's called intercept, right? If you put a straight line equation, this is x-axis, this is y-axis, your line may be something like this. So when x equal to 0, the value of y is nothing but beta 0. Okay, and what is beta 0? Beta 0 is defined as the value of dependent variable when independent variable is 0. So once again, in our example, that is um, if your X is hours of study and Y is marks obtained on the exam, then even when you don't put any hours of study, that is when your X equal to 0, you may still get some marks on the exam. Maybe you can, let's say you may be lucky, you may simply go, it's a multiple choice question, you may simply tick, and based on luck you may get some mark on the exam, right? So even when your hours of study is 0, that is when you go to the exam totally unprepared, still you may get some mark. So that mark, that is the value of Y, dependent variable, when X is equal to 0, when independent variable is 0, is beta 0. That is your intercept. Okay? So simple, beta 1 is slope, is nothing but that change in dependent variable for a unit change of independent variable. And beta 0 is nothing but intercept, is nothing but that value of independent, that value of dependent variable when independent variable takes no value, X equal to 0. Make sense? Ruchika, I hope, and even others, Abhinav, Akshit, Pooja, I hope you understood the explanation. Okay, Akshit has a question. Can you give me list of formulas which cover L2 quants? Akshit, what I'll do is, I don't have the list of formulas handy with me right now, but what I'll do is I'll actually direct you to a particular person in Pristine. You can contact the person. Basically, he or she would be a career counselor, and he or she can actually give you all the information, all these handy data such as list of all formulas, etc., which you can easily, they can easily mail to you. All right. Unfortunately, I don't have anything ready with me right now. Yeah. All right, guys. So pretty much, I think I'll end the demo for today. Hopefully, you got some. Hopefully you got some idea about the topic of regression analysis today. Of course, you'll be studying much more about this in level 1. And so what apart from whatever we have covered today, you'll be studying much more in detail in level 2 quants. That is, we studied simple linear regression analysis. You also study about multiple linear regression analysis. That is, what happens, how multiple independent variables can together predict a dependent variable. You also learn a lot about various assumptions used in regression analysis. What happens if those assumptions are not true? What are kind of problems you face when the assumptions that you took for regression analysis doesn't hold true? And if that is the case, how do you fix your regression equation? So all this you'll study in level 2. All right. So hopefully I think you guys got a decent idea. So now let's move on to the next part of demo. I will not waste time because it's already beyond 7. So I probably will move on to the next part of the demo, which is more about CFA level 2 exam. So any questions that you guys might have, I'll be more than happy to answer about level 2. I think given that you have already attended level 1 exam, I think you at this point, most of you would have a decent idea about what to expect on the exam day, and stuff like what calculator can I use, and stuff, and etc. So all those information will also be there. And I think by this time you also already know that level 2 exam is only conducted once a year, which is June. Okay, so only level 1 exam is conducted twice a year, June and December. Level 2 and level 3 are only conducted once a year, which is June. Okay. So Pooja has a question. The online class covers classroom classes also now. Yes. So whatever we do in classroom classes, we also do it in online classes. Okay. And the idea is straightforward. That is, let's say if in case you miss attending a classroom session, then you can always hook on to the next webinar event, so that it's easy for you to cover classes. So usually your webinar classes happen with a delay of your classroom classes. So in case, let's say you missed attending a in-person class for quants in classroom, you can always hook on to the next webinar session. So that's the whole idea. But the curriculum is exactly identical. That is, your online and your classroom curriculum is exactly identical. Abhinav has a question. Is 4 months enough to prepare for exam considering I took L1 in 2011? Should be okay. Abhinav, to be honest, for you to, so there is a lot of, there is a influence of level 1 concepts in level 2 also. So it's very important that you are, up to speed with the concepts that you studied in level 1, because especially when it comes to FSA, that is financial statement analysis and all, whatever you studied in level 1 is again repeated in level 2. So it's very important, and same thing with your economics topics. So it's very important that you keep in touch with level 1 concepts. Assuming that you have already kept in, you are already keeping in touch with level 1 concepts, then yes, I think 4 months will be more than enough for you to prepare. Of course, the challenge in level 2 is that you have a whole different ball game because of the volume of concepts that you study, and of course your examination style is slightly different. As I said, you'll get item choice questions, so it's very important to not to leave any particular topic. So yeah, as long as you do those basic things, yeah, 4 months will be definitely enough for you to do well on the exam. Okay. So if I were you, I'll probably start brushing my level 1 concepts in preparation for level 2 right away. That will be useful, especially FRA and economics. Ruchika has a question. Any decent online groups, blogs to join for CFA? Yeah, there are a couple of them, which I probably benefited out of it. So I think there is an interesting forum called Analyst Forum. I think most of you would have already heard or would have joined it. I personally felt that it's a very, very useful forum to have because they basically talk about various questions that so the participants are also students writing the exam. So it's a very good forum to understand the concept and have a group discussion about. So I personally felt Analyst Forum was a very useful forum for me to learn a lot about CFA and the concepts. And whenever I used to get time in office, I just used to browse through this forum just to see what kind of questions are posted and what kind of answers are discussed. So it's a useful thing to have. And Pooja has another question. What if I want to attend the same class again? Is that facility available? Yeah, I think that facility is available. Again, Pooja, I think you need to talk to the career counselor. She'll be able to explain more details about how what happens in case you miss a particular topic. But yeah, I've seen cases where primarily because if a lot of students have taken see that it's a double-edged sword, right? Because just because you miss the topic, other students should not be disadvantaged because of course we have to finish topics also. We have to finish taking lectures for each and every topic so that by May at least we are done with all the topics, so that the whole of May is available for you to prepare for the exam. So just because one or two students missing the class, it will be very difficult for setting up the same session, primarily because it's a disadvantage to other students who have attended the class. But having said that, there have been occasions where a large number of students either felt that the particular topic was very difficult and therefore they wanted to take another class, or a large number of students couldn't attend the class, in which case there was a need to take the same session again. So these kind of exceptions do happen. You should talk to your career counselor, as I said. He or she will be able to guide you more about the process. Okay, so definitely that flexibility is available. Akshit has a question. Will you take any other webinars on different topics, sir? Yeah, I actually take, in fact, for level 2, I've taken classes on all the topics. Traditionally, I come for financial statement analysis, quants, economics. I've also taken equity. Equity is a big topic in level 2. So yeah, I've taken all classes for all topics in level 2. In fact, I've taken classes for all topics in level 1, level 2, as well as level 3. Okay. Now, whether I'll come for any other webinar for your batch, I'm not sure, because every week the schedule is prepared, keeping in mind the availability of various faculty. So if not me, definitely people who are like me or maybe even better than me, faculty who are all CFA and FRM graduates, will definitely come and take classes for you. So that you need not worry about that. All right. Abhinav has a question. Can you give URL for this forum? Abhinav, I think it's called www.analystforum.com. I'm not very sure. A better idea would be to do a Google and search. Okay, the forum is definitely called Analyst Forum, and I'm sure you get the moment you hit Google, you get a lot of links to this topic. Akshit has a question. How will I come to know about these webinars? So Akshit, once you join Pristine, that is once you pay your fee, you get a login ID. So if you go to your login ID, by every Wednesday or Tuesday, the session for the upcoming weekend is already prepared. So there is already a schedule published for the upcoming weekend, and there you can also see what is the upcoming session for the webinar batch. So you'll come to know about this as early as Tuesday or Wednesday in the week. All right. So Pooja has a question. Question of Pristine material is enough for preparing for level 2, or do I need to go through institute material? See, again, it's more a case-by-case basis. So there are certain topics which I felt were excellently given in your level 2 CFA Institute textbook. Okay. So as a general rule of thumb, I prefer that you go through Pristine or special materials for majority of the concepts. But again, there are one or two concepts which I think neither in Pristine material or nor in Squasher, enough focus or enough emphasis is given. So in such cases, I usually ask students to refer to CFA Institute textbook. Okay. Again, it's more a case-by-case basis. So as and when I take classes, I basically tell these are the concepts which I think you should focus or you should study using CFA Institute textbook. So again, as I said, it's more a case-by-case basis. But if I had to pick up a number, I would say around 90% of the topics are well covered in Pristine or Squasher material. But again, there are those 10% of the topics which I feel are better explained in CFA Institute textbook. Okay. So as I take class, I usually explain for these topics, probably refer to the CFA textbook because it's much better explained in CFA textbook. Okay. Akshay, that's a question. What do you suggest, print curriculum or e-learning for CFA exam? Akshay, in terms of content of material, there is absolutely no difference, whether it's a printed curriculum or e-learning. In terms of cost, there is a difference. I think if you opt for e-learning because there is no printing cost, because there is no courier cost, I think it comes a good deal, $80 cheap, if I'm not $50 to $80 cheap. So if you're indifferent to either studying on laptop versus studying through your textbook, then I suggest you go to e-books because in terms of cost, they'll be $50 to $80 cheap for you, which is basically your printing cost and courier cost saved. But if you are much more comfortable reading through a textbook material, so I personally prefer that because I don't like putting too much of strain reading through laptop. Again, it's more my personal choice. So I would rather go for a printed curriculum. But the point is there is absolutely no difference in terms of your course content. The content is exactly identical in CFA printed textbook or e-learning material. Okay, it's more your personal convenience that should drive this decision from your perspective. Akshay says, how can I release my study material from custom? It's not a big deal, usually after some time. So, if you say that your material is held up in customs, you just need to give some time because usually so these materials are not very costly. They're around, but I think maximum $100 to $200. So that is not a big amount to be imported to India. So no issue. I think after some time they'll most likely release and you'll get your material. But in case it's getting too delayed, you can always contact CFA Institute and they can always ask any of the local bodies. So there is this. So I'm associated with the CFA Institute through a local body called IAIP, Indian Association of Investment Professionals, and so there are various. So there is definitely an Indian presence of CFA Institute, and they may definitely ask any one of them to go and check to get this done. Actually, said, do I have to pay for that? Usually not. So usually, usually CFA Institute sorts it out directly with customs and get it done. Okay, so I've not seen a case where your material is held with customs for long. Just give it some time. Probably within a week or so you should get your material. All right. Any other question, guys? So Abhinav has a question. In terms of difficulty, is level 2 more difficult than L1? Yes and no. Yes, because difficulty level is higher primarily because, as I said, because of the volume of topics that you deal with. Okay. So as I said, a general rule of thumb says that your syllabus of level 2 is at least 1.5 times syllabus of level 1. Okay. It's at least 1.5 times syllabus of level 1. So suddenly you're dealing with voluminous concepts. Okay, if you look at equity portion of level 1 versus equity portion of level 2, it's much larger in level 2. Okay, so that way it is a little difficult. Okay, however, I feel that the individual concepts as such are not very difficult. So in terms of difficulty of individual concepts, I think L1 and L2 are similar. But what makes L2 a little difficult is two things. One is the volume of concepts that you study, and of course your structure of exam is slightly different also. You need to know, as I said, because there are item set questions and there are only 10 item set question, each case study will have 6 questions. So the moment you ignore a topic and let's say you become very unlucky and that topic becomes one of the item set question, the next thing that you know is you suddenly lost 6 questions out of 120 questions. So the structure of the exam, the volume of topics that you study, and the fact that you can't ignore any topic and you have to give equal and due importance for each and every topic is what makes L2 a little difficult than L1. Okay, but the concepts individually as such are not very difficult. So I hope, Abhinav, I answered your question. Akshit has a question, are you a CFA? Yes, Akshit, I am both a CFA as well as an FRM. Okay, so I finished my CFA in the year 2010. I finished my FRM even before that, 2008. And yes, I am a charter holder too. Okay, so I can use both CFA and FRM beside my name. Okay. Any other question, guys? So the key of doing well on level 2 is definitely focus study. You need to study on a daily basis, primarily because there is so much to study. There is suddenly an explosion of topics. There's so much to study, and you have to remember all those concepts of the exam. So the volume of or the depth, not necessarily the depth of concepts, rather your breadth of concepts. That is your volume of topics is what makes level 2 a little tricky, and therefore the only way to tackle that is to be disciplined. That is, every day you at least devote 1 to 2 hours to study, and that will help you a great deal. Okay. Actually, there's a question: how many students are there in today's webinar? Actually, there are only 4 of you who have joined. We have Abhinav, Akshit, you, and Pooja and Ruchika. So 4 of you have joined today. So not many that way. But I assume this is the second demo session. So I hope most of you would have already got your answers clarified in the first demo. So I'm not surprised in terms of reduced attendance for your second demo. So that's okay. All right, guys. Any other question that I may help you with? Akshit, may I know your name? Akshit, my name is Karthik. So my name is Karthik. Okay, and I'm CFA FRM, right? And before any one of you ask, I basically come from an engineering background. So when I decided to take up CFA, I had absolutely no idea about finance. Okay, so I did CFA and FRM while I was working, obviously. So I didn't have to quit my job, and I feel that is one of the advantages of CFA and FRM for that matter, because it allows you to gain your experience while gaining, your or while passing your exam. So that's very important. whereas any good MBA program would require you to do full-time. So you would have to quit your job and etc. etc. You know, so compared to that, I think this is much better. Both CFA and FRM are actually useful that way. Akshay says, where do you live? I actually live in Hyderabad. Abhinav has a question. Are you MBA as well? No, Abhinav, I didn't do my MBA because like everybody else, midway through my career, I had a choice to make. Do I want to do CFA or MBA? And I realized that what I really like is more a financial profile. You know, I like, so probably a few years down the line, I want to see myself as a CFO of a firm. And therefore, you know, it was better for me to do CFA than MBA. Again, it's more a personal choice that I made. Akshit asked for a contact number. Akshit, unfortunately, I can't give you my contact number for regulatory reasons. Once again, you know, if you have any question, you can please. What I'll do is at the end of this session, I'll leave you with a contact number of a more appropriate person, a career counselor, and he or she would be able to help you with any kind of question that you might have. And we'll definitely interact in any webinar sessions that we have. But for regulatory reasons, I can't actually give you my phone number. I'd apologize for that. Right. Any other question, ladies and gentlemen, that I can help you with? Okay. So Abhinav, Akshit, Pooja, Ruchika, shall I assume that all of you are good and all of you have got your answers clarified? Ruchika says nope, so I hope that nope means that no more questions. Okay, all right, thank you. Thank you very much, guys. It has been a pleasure interacting with you. And I hope, I sincerely wish all the best for your future endeavors. And I definitely hope to see you guys in some of the webinar sessions for Pristine. All right, all the best. And I hope to continue interacting with people like you in future. All the best once again for your exams. Do well and have a great career ahead. Right, I'll end the session for today. Thank you very much. It's been great interacting with you. Have a good weekend or whatever is left of weekend, and have a great week ahead also. All right. Thank you very much. Bye. Good night.
The organizer has ended this session.